Season 2 of the Sri Lankan Understanding. Today we are at the beautiful Mount Lavinia Hotel, and we have a very, very interesting topic in mind. A topic that is very close to my heart actually. 7th May 2025 was a monumental day in the world of Sri Lankan wildlife conservation. There was a Supreme Court judgment which was passed after 15 years after filing the case, where the Supreme Court decided that a road that was proposed to be built through the Wilpattu National Park was not a legal endeavor, and they were asked to stop it. The reason it is monumental is that there's a legal implication of it, which we will discuss. There's a scientific component to it, which we will discuss. But it is one of the few occasions where the Sri Lankan court has directly stepped in and sought to protect the Sri Lankan public at large, even though most of the public sometimes don't seem to think it is important. To discuss this is we have the first petitioner of this case, the Environmental Foundation Limited. We have two representatives from Environmental Foundation Limited. Unfortunately, the second petitioner, the Wildlife Nature Protection Society, WNPS, we reached out to them and they were unable to send a representative, which would have been fantastic as well. But nevertheless, we will go forth and discuss this today. I would like to welcome the head of legal of the EFL, Nimshi Hinrumbuwa. Thank you so much for coming. And one of the scientists who was instrumental in some of the submissions that were made to court in preparing those documents. And I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with him, Madhava Botejue, who has been a zoologist for 22 years now.
Yeah.
And he has some very interesting work with leading to geckos, but that is a conversation for another time. Nimshi, to set us off, can you explain as to why this case was necessary and why EFL felt the need to file this case way back in 2010, I believe?
First of all, we would like to thank you and also Hi TV for giving attention to this very important issue in Sri Lanka. We as EFL filed the case in 2010 with three other petitioners, WNPS as you said, and there was another organization by the name Wilderness and Protected Areas Foundation, yes, and also another individual.
There's an individual, yes. I saw that.
All the four of us, we filed the case in 2010 because we got to know that a road that was going through the Wilpattu National Park was supposed to be open to the public, in the sense that general buses were supposed to go through that park. That was the initial information that we got. And then when we researched about it, we found out that there were two roads that were constructed within the park. One more towards the eastern boundary and another more towards the western boundary of it. Okay.
So when you say constructed, now I want to go back in time a little bit.
Yeah.
We're also talking about when the military had taken over the Wilpattu National Park, yes, during the Civil War.
Yeah.
And but even at that time, from what I understand, from what I read in the papers, there was concurrent jurisdiction between the military and the Department of Wildlife, yes, and these were mainly constructed for military use, was it?
Yes,
initially?
Yes. Initially, they were constructed by the armed forces because there was a need for, it was under the LTT, there were like, for national security reasons, we do understand that it was constructed for those
the
purposes.
Wilpattu National Park was closed off for many years during the war.
It was open, closed out, in several situations, several things happened because the LTT was coming back and going back and forth. So it was under the control of armed forces for a really long period of time, and during that period what we got to know that it has been constructed. This is not a road that was there definitely before the time the Wilpattu National Park was gazetted.
And you had alluded to that in your filings also.
Yes.
It's very clear that this road did not exist before the war.
There was a road which was referred to as an old Manor road, which was a mere cart road.
Okay.
But this was in fact properly like a constructed toll roads, and that was done by the armed forces, and the Department of Wildlife Conservation also in their pleadings have clearly stated that they were not aware of the constructions because they were also not in control of that area at that period of time.
Of course.
So it was not just the constructions. In 2010 we got to know that the road that was more towards the eastern side was open to the public.
Okay.
And that
so two issues. One, there was a road that was illegally constructed.
Yes.
and two, they were now going to open it to the public, which meant that you were going to have a public road right through a park that has been that is considered a sanctuary, a national park, as per the Flora and Fauna Act.
Yes.
Now, the Flora and Fauna Act is what basically defines what your national parks are. You have Yala National Park, you have Vilpattu, which are the famous ones, then you have Kumana. So all those parks, the boundaries, all those things are demarcated under the Flora and Fauna Act. I know this is going to be a very legal discussion, but I am going to do our best with Nimshi here to make it as accessible as possible, because we believe it is a really important topic, and I want to make it as accessible to as many people as possible. Yes, so then?
So when we got to know about the opening of it, we went ahead and filed a petition in the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka. It was a fundamental rights application. So that was the main reason why the case was filed.
Right. Now, it's really important. I want to set this stage before we continue. Now, a fundamental rights application is generally, there are four articles in the Constitution which allow you to file fundamental rights applications. Those applications, when you file under those sections, are actionable under a court of law. Basically, Supreme Court has the right to give you relief if they feel that you have been wrong. You can file as an individual, you can file as a company, you can file as any Sri Lankan citizen or a corporate in Sri Lanka, or someone can file it for you. For instance, if you feel that my rights are being violated by the Sri Lankan government, you can file a case on my behalf. You can hire a lawyer can file a case. So that is what EFL did in this instance. It's not that EFL was being personally harmed,
yes,
but you filed a case on behalf of the Sri Lankan public.
Yes.
Right? Now that is why it's important, which then comes into public interest litigation.
Yes.
Right. So then what happened once you filed the case?
Once the case was filed, it was filed in 2010, and we got the order in 2025. So it's like
it was almost, I believe, just 15 years and a few months.
Yeah, it was a really long battle. We got some interim relief in the middle, but
right,
there were a few, like there were statement of, as you may know.
I want to come to the interim relief because I believe that played an important role.
Yes.
With the Road Development Authority and all that. I'll come to that. So we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, before we delve more into legal technicalities, we're going to take you into scientific technicalities. It's a really easy show today. See you soon. Welcome back. We are discussing the monumental case in which the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka deemed that a road that was constructed through the wildlife park in Vilpattu was illegal. And what is important about that is that there were scientific submissions made by EFL as the petitioner in this when they were filing submissions in court. And I want to read out some of the submissions that were made in court. Basically, it said that it will result in habitat fragmentation, that the road will cause disturbance to wildlife. It will obviously, this is not scientific, this is general knowledge, it will increase human-animal conflicts, which is what we see. Every single time an elephant walks into somebody's property, I mean, you see this elephant-human conflict all the time. Facilitate poaching, biopiracy, I want to talk about biopiracy, and illegal sand mining. Annual sand mining will go up. It will cause immeasurable damage to the natural ecosystem and the pollution. So these are some of the things that you don't necessarily think about. And why this is a problem is that we've had a history of people going into national parks, felling trees, poaching, and we don't necessarily understand the implications of how it's going to affect humans. Let's leave the animals aside for a moment. Let's see. What we don't understand is, in the long run, this is dangerous to humans as well. So Madhava, if you can explain some of these submissions that were made to court, because I think it is important for people to understand why wildlife conservation is important.
Yeah, good question, Mahesh, and
Yes.
thanks for having us today. So actually, let me like enter this in a different way. If you take that, let's say that you are living in an ancestral home, in an ancestral village that you have been living, your families have been living for hundreds of years. Would you like to have a road, a commercial road going through that village? Obviously not, right? So that's, so why is that? Because that will eventually that will disrupt and like it will be a hazard for you, the people who are living in that village. So if you take that like that experience, if you think about how the experience the animals will have, if a road go through a national park is established for conservation. Main purpose is to conservation and to protect these animals and plants.
Well, I mean,
natural
we've
habitats.
also had wildlife ministers in the past come in and saying the wildlife protection is there to protect humans.
Yes.
But let's, I mean, aside from the absolute
Yes.
idiocy of that statement,
Yeah.
this is the general thinking of people.
Yes.
You're trying to keep the animals that are harming you inside,
Yeah.
and we are not necessarily trying to protect the animals that are inside. That is the general
That is the
thinking.
general concept.
Yeah.
But actually, why a national park is established? To conserve the environment, conserve the flora and fauna, and also it is connected to our lives as well. We'll come to that later.
Yeah.
But coming back to your question, if you think about why let's say habitat fragmentation, why are we talking about habitat fragmentation?
Can you just explain what habitat fragmentation is?
Habitat fragmentation, it's the same thing that I mentioned earlier about the village, right?
Okay.
If the road runs through a village, then the village split into two, right?
Yeah.
As same as if a unique habitat or an ecosystem, a road or construction, any kind of human activity comes with in between that, through that, then the habitat will be fragmented into few little pieces, right?
Right.
So that these road or like human habitations or human constructions become a barrier to the species to cross. So it is not a part of the natural environment. These species, maybe animals or plants, they are not used to such a terrain, right?
Yeah.
So they are not able to cross that. So it becomes, then the habitat becomes fragmented. So the connection between these, the earlier connected habitat disrupts. The connection between the areas, it won't have any more connection.
And what does that lead to, Madhava? Like, again, yes.
Yeah, that lead to many environmental issues, right? So if you take, let's take the road. Having a road through this habitat, so it is going to be a commercial road, right? So there will be buses and lorries and all kinds of vehicles running on it.
Yeah.
So one of the most leading cause of air pollution in Sri Lanka is vehicle emissions. So these emissions will be released in a earlier sensitive area. It's a sensitive area. The forest is a sensitive area. Earlier these emissions were not within it.
Yeah.
So these emissions will act as toxic to these species and animals and plants. So eventually it will lead to their extinction. And also because of this fragmentation, the populations get fragmented also. So the inbreeding, the breeding and the sustaining of these populations won't happen. This, so it lead to, it's in scientific means it lead to so many issues, because eventually because of this the populations won't be able to have to sustain themselves, right?
And in Vilpattu, correct me if I'm wrong, because of the villus and how it is, how all the entire ecosystem is based on the villus and the access to the villus and all that sort of thing. Anything that is going to disrupt your paths, because obviously the animals are used to certain paths that goes to this particular villu, right? So like say Paneko villu or Maneko villu or whichever, right? So when you are used to going to a certain path and suddenly you are not able to, then you have to find alternate sources of sustenance.
Yeah, and also the thing is, let's take humans, we are intelligent, so we can adapt easily than an animal. Because the animals don't have our intelligence, so they don't have the capacity to think and do things. So they are used to certain ways of living. It may be like genetical or environmental factors. So when such a change happened in the environment, they are not easily adapted to that. They won't be able to like deal with it easily. So eventually it will be a harm for them for their sustenance and also the population maintenance. And also if you take food and water, eventually if there is a barrier for their usual feeding grounds or usual like waterholes or whatever it is, then they will have to find some other ways, and if they are unable to find so, they will eventually die down.
So now I understand this, right? Now I understand this, I go to the jungle, I understand this. I want to talk more about this, and especially biopiracy and how this affects humans.
Yes.
And because I feel that there are lots of people going to say, okay, fine, yes, animals are going to die, so what? Some trees are going to die, so what? Right? Some water is going to get polluted, so what? But I think if you stop thinking in those terms, like, so what, how is it going to affect me as a person, I think there will be a lot more understanding. We'll discuss this when we come back. We're going to take a short break now, and we'll be back soon. Welcome back. We were discussing with Madhava some of the scientific implications of conservation and pollution, and why building a road through Vilpattu National Park would have been catastrophic. So, Nimshi, I think some of these reasons were why some of the interim reliefs, now interim relief again in a fundamental rights application is that you can ask for the final relief, that is what you want at the end. But until you get what you want at the end, you can ask for something that is there in the interim, as the interim relief says. So you can say, until that is granted, do this, because if not, what you give me at the end is going to be useless. Now that is exactly what the court did in this case. Can you explain some of the interim relief that was granted?
Actually, at the very initial stage, generally, as you may also know, interim relief is granted at the very beginning
Outset, yes,
of the case. But however, in this instance, there was no such relief that was granted at the beginning. But the Road Development Authority, we came to know that they wanted to develop the road, and they meddled with the road to a certain extent. Okay. And on that instance, in fact, even the Road Development Authority was added to the case in a much later stage. In
2013.
In 2017 or 13, okay. Yes.
Okay.
Somewhere down the line. When we got to know that, they also, like, in a sense, the Supreme Court, when we brought in the facts to the court to say that they have meddled with it, and if the road is being developed, there's no point in us getting the reliefs at the end of the day. So, the Supreme Court in 2017 September actually gave an order to say that the status quo, in the sense the road should maintain as it is, no development activities should take place, and also that only like normal minor repairs could take place.
Okay.
That was the only
stipulation that was given.
Yes,
but even that wasn't strictly adhered to, from what I understand.
There were instances, but using this order, we were able to stop most of the, even we even went to magistrate court, because there were like certain situations where people wanted to enter coming in buses. Okay, there were like several such situations where even the Department of Wildlife Conservation used the order in several locations to stop such activities. Right. So I believe that even though it was just one order and that was received somewhere in the middle, it was used continuously until the very end.
To prevent further harm coming to this. I do want to go back to some of the legal submissions that were made. One was that the RDA did not have the authority to construct this road, because it comes under the Department of Wildlife Conservation. And therefore, the power is derived from the Flora and Fauna Act. Now again, if people think just because it's government, entire government works together. Entire government does not work together. You have different government departments of the government given very specific powers to do very specific things. Now, in this instance, the Flora and Fauna Act gives the Department of Wildlife Conservation some power over wildlife habitats. No other department can usurp that without proper authority. Now, this is what happened in this instance, where the Road Development Authority that didn't have the right, they tried to build this road, which is why you took up that legal submission. Then there were few other submissions that you all made. If you can just quickly run us through the submissions that were made to court.
Yes. Our main point was that we did not challenge the construction because we did understand
course.
it was during the time of war, national security laws prevail over everything. So we do understand it and even disregard, even irrespective of the laws, the need at that time prevailed over the rest of the things. So we did understand the fact that it was constructed. But there was a point when the war was over, and then it should, our main submission was that at that point, the road should revert back to its original status, in the sense.
Because even initially, even though the military took it over, it is still in conjunction with the DWC.
Yes.
It was not a complete takeover.
Yes. There was a point when DWC were not in control of it, that it was completely
But
given
legally.
to the, legally anyways, that lot would anyways belong to Department of Wildlife Conservation, because it has been gazetted under the Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance, and that it should be under the control of the Department of Wildlife Conservation, and it should be governed under the provisions of the Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance.
Yes. So then, what was also really interesting to note is now they were insisting they build this road, but there were alternative roads available.
Yes.
There was roads that you could go from around. I mean, it's not like Mana was cut off, right?
Yes.
So even then, the RDA, the Road Development Authority, was insistent that they build this road.
Actually, what the RDA's main point was that they were not involved in the development. They have very clear cut said that it was under the control of Navy, so they were not involved in the development. But now that with the post-war needs and there was the government policy decisions to allow this to be a public road, what they are claiming is that they were entrusted with the responsibility of maintaining the road.
Madhava, would there have been a difference between say a jeep track, a tarred road, or say like a B road or a A road? What difference would that have made to having that road being constructed?
Having a jeep track is something that usually within wildlife parks there are jeep tracks, and if it is a tarred road, then it will become a public road. Right? When it's a public road, all kinds of vehicles go through it, and maintaining the speed limit is also not easy. So tarred road we won't have potholes and all. If it is a jeep track, there will be potholes, there will be ups and downs, all these kind of things. So having a tarred road will worsen this more than having a jeep track. Usually within wildlife parks there are jeep tracks. The speed limit in a wildlife park is 25 kilometers per hour. So maintaining that speed in a think about it. Will the vehicles, will the people do that? So if it is a tarred road, if you have the well built, they will go very fast.
And another thing I wanted to touch on is they were also trying to establish a habitat, like a village within a 1 mile radius of Vilpattu, and this road would have led to that
as well.
That village as well. And the moment you have humans in such close proximity to a wildlife park, then you're going to have another set of issues. Now, why I want to talk about this, the legal arguments that were made. Now, you were trying to say from an administrative point of view, what they had done was illegal. And in law, we call this ultra vires. But it means that even though a governmental department has the power to do it, the moment they go over and above that, that becomes an illegal act. And therefore, in law, even if somebody is not giving you what you owe, when you go to get a building permit, if they do something illegal, that is illegal. They don't have the power that is unfettered. And this unfettered power was a very important part of the submissions that you made. I want to discuss that in the next episode. So please do join us again on the next episode of the Sri Lankan Understanding, where we're going to conclude and we're going to discuss the order and why it was important and how the legal arguments that frame could be important going forward for you to protect your rights in Sri Lanka. See you soon.